Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life, and I feel this is the final piece to the puzzle for T Mobile. The midterm guidance pre merger was 2023, and the long term guidance for T Mobile is 2026. So at the midpoint, which is 2023, T Mobile had established great finances, much better size and scale of network. And late last year is when we started getting these articles about new stores and more 5G in Texas, Virginia, and upstate New York, just lots of new places that T Mobile was expanding into. But there's still more needed. So come 2026, we should see more of this year, next year, and then 2026 as well. But this is the final piece to the puzzle. When many said that T-Mobile was behind during LTE, it wasn't because the technology that they were adding to the sites was behind, right? It was still they were still deploying LTE, and in some cases they had more modern LTE. They had more 4x4 MIMO, more 256 QAM. When people said they were behind, it was mainly on size and scale of the network. They just didn't have very early on when they were transitioning from HSPA to LTE. They had no service outside of city limits. It was very small network back then. I remember it. Shortly after the merger failed with AT&T, AT&T had to allow T-Mobile to roam on their HSPA network. And while T-Mobile was deploying LTE in the metro core, as soon as you got like 20 miles outside the city limits, you were roaming on LTE for an extended period of time. And this was like 2012, 2013, before T-Mobile had any low band in their network, and they were just AWS PCS. You were roaming on AT&T, and that was a pretty poor experience to begin with. So that's what most people had misunderstood in terms of being behind. Yes, of course, T-Mobile didn't have at that time LTE on all of its existing native network, but that changed around 2015 or so. That's when most POPs where T-Mobile had service had LTE on it, but they still lagged behind in overall size and scale of the network. That's where they were really behind, like severely. And then in 2015, they got low band, and then the network got bigger. But even in some regions and counties, they didn't own any Band 12, even after the purchase from Verizon's Band 12. I remember going to Dallas, traveling on I-20. Once I crossed from El Paso County, there was no low band. They couldn't fill those areas until they got Band 71. So it was a tough time for T-Mobile. That's now changing. There's more investment going into the network. The network is getting larger. We're seeing it in the articles. Some of you have experienced it in real time, real world. So it's now a totally different dynamic. And from today, right, in year 2024 through 2026, we are going to see the network scale and get bigger again. We're going to see more of these articles. And I feel that's the final piece to the puzzle. Anything that evolves around churn, that evolves around network perception, T-Mobile growing the company, is all evolving, in my opinion, around this last piece to the puzzle, and it's really the size and scale of the network. Most people understand today, or most people say that in the metro, the bigger markets, right, the bigger PEAs, T-Mobile is an acceptable network. It's a good network. Most people will agree to that. But the fact that T-Mobile is still behind the overall size and scale of network, that's what many will say, like, yeah, T-Mobile's good here, but as I'm traveling, and this is not for everyone, but for some, they say, hey, as I'm traveling, there's still some roaming that I run into. And most of that roaming for T-Mobile is really just uptime. So so that customer doesn't go to no service. So there's uptime. So most of you will roam on AT&T in a lot of the cases. And that's just for uptime. And I think that's a good thing. But that also means that T-Mobile is looking at those areas to grow and scale their network, because they have to pay AT&T still for that roaming. And of course, eventually T-Mobile wants to end all of that roaming. So they got to build where, people are going to roam on the AT&T network. So that's the whole customer focus driven network. That's where that comes into play. T-Mobile has to analyze and they have to say, okay, our customers are traveling here a lot. They're roaming on AT&T. We're paying for that, but let's go ahead and build a couple of sites here, and then we can get them off of that AT&T roaming. So it's going to be very interesting to monitor the next 2 years. I would say the 12 to 18 months, T-Mobile's network is going to be much bigger. And then the 24 to 30 month mark, I would say it's going to be very, very, very close to being on par with the competition. So make sure you guys stay tuned for more. Like, share, subscribe, follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Life, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.